Hi, I'm Hannah.
Hi, I'm Ann.
I'm Pam.
Hi, I'm Marie, and we are coming to you live from Austin, Texas, because it's
Happy Woolly Wednesday!
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. We hope we're actually in the Living Felt Friends group now. So if we are, just say hi and tell us where you're from and check in. We're getting started a little late, but everyone is ready to have a great session with you today, and we have lots and lots to share. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
The fairies are ready. Okay, let's get started, y'all. Hi everyone. For those of you, hopefully you found us here in our group, and sorry for the false start on that. Ann's giving me the big nod, so it looks like we are on. Thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties. We are Living Felting Supplies. If you are joining us for the first time, you'll see that some of our BFFs are checking in and saying hi and where they're from, and we invite you to do that too. We're in Austin. We do this on Wednesdays. We'd like to hang out with our friends and have an interactive broadcast that lasts about an hour. And today our topic, we're talking about wall hangings, and we're going to talk about a lot of things with wall hangings. And we have a few things to share first. So I want to say hi to just a few people. There's Heather in Alberta, and Sherry Swan in Maryland. Jalen is here in Texas, and I'm not going to remember where everybody's from. Kathleen in California. Terry. Hi, y'all. Thank you for joining with us. We have some UK friends. Probably we're going to have some folks in various parts of the world join us, and we're just so happy to hang out with you. I am showing off today my hat that I made in the 3-day class with Kate Kaprowski. Most people got to make 2 hats, and I only had time to make 1. But I just had such a fun time making this hat, and Kate is such a lovely teacher. So this hat, what is it?
Rodney says hi from his studio.
Hi, Rodney Jean. That's my beautiful husband, if you see his name, in his music studio where he works all day. Nice to see you, sweetie. This hat was made with the merino short fiber bats on the inside, and outside is red indigo in our MC1 batting. And there's no stiffener in it or anything like that, so it's currently very floppy and very Seussian, but I'm thinking I might stiffen it and make it fit better. So I wanted to share that with y'all. Hey, listen, we have some requests. Before we get into the wall hangings, we're going to answer some community requests, and Hannah is going to kick it off. Yay, Hannah!
Hi, y'all. How you doing? Alrighty, I have a request from Michelle Martinez. She requested to see some of our other fibers that go along with the color Majestic Blue or match it the closest. So that's going to be our Majestic Blue. We have 2 merino top colors that we think look pretty similar to it, but not exactly like it. One is going to be Evening, which is a little bit darker, but a very similar hue. And the second is going to be the True Blue. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit of a vibrant blue, but it's still pretty close to the Majestic. And then we have one other color in our New Zealand Corriedale. It's just going to be our Royal. And we thought that was a pretty close match for the New Zealand Corriedale family. So there you go, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much for being here with us today. Rachel in Oregon wanted to see some spring colors in our merino top. We thought that there was a lot that could fit, so we decided to break it up. Today we're going to show some more pastel spring colors, and then next week we'll show some more vibrant, bright ones.
Rachel says hi, Ann.
Hi, Rachel. Alrighty, so here are the colors we've got for today. We're going to start right here in this corner. This is Larkspur, Lavender. This one is Ballerina, Petunia, Citrus, Peach, Powder, Daffodil, Chartreuse, and Kiwi. And all of these colors are 19.5 microns.
Let me see what they say. That's good. I can't
Wonderful.
see. Everyone's saying hi. Kate says, "Oh, those are so pretty." Rachel was like, "Oh, they are lovely. Very good, very good.
Very
Yes,
gorgeous.
pretty spring colors." Joanne says, "Spring is in the air." Very nice. Perfect Easter egg colors. Rachel says, "Thank you." And of course, Kate asks, "Do you have them in a bundle?"
No. We don't.
We don't got them in a bundle, Kate. We could bundle ourselves to death, and then you guys would wonder why we're out of bundles, because we don't have no more time to bundle no more. We get full with making and assembling, so sorry we don't have a bundle for that, but it sure does look pretty. And then when we were picking those out, we thought next time we definitely have to show a bright set. Now I know somebody asked to see our greens designer pack, and what we'll do, we have a really full slate today, so we got these out of the way early, and if we have time we'll tack it on to the end. If not, we'll see, we'll try and address it next week or before then if we can. So thanks for your patience on that. So let's talk about wall hangings. Anne. Spara. Oh, I'm sorry. One more that I can answer quickly. Spara Ace had posted and asked about the slipper template and addressing shrinkage, like how to know how big to make the template. And Anne is going to post a link to the PDF download tutorial for how to adjust shrinkage. And if you don't want to get that, the slipper PDF, there is our free shrinkage calculator, which is under the wet felting tools, and that's a free tool. So that should help you with shrinkage. Okay, so let's talk about wall hangings. And this is such a common topic, and we get questions all the time that aren't very easy to answer because there's so many parameters and so many dynamics. So our goal today, if you have questions pertaining to wall hangings in general, as much as possible, today would be the best time to ask them, because what we want to do is make this session address as many questions as possible, so it becomes sort of a standalone reference, if it's helpful. So there's lots of ways to approach a wall hanging, and one of the ways we can talk about it, we decided today that we would talk about backgrounds and selecting a background or a base, and then also talk about hanging and mounting. So let's first talk about different approaches to making a wall hanging and some considerations for each. So when I mean different approaches, I mean is what we're going to try and do is talk about a wall hanging that is 100% needle felted, 100% wet felted and then needle felted and then wet felted, and then you could also, of course, wet needle, wet needle, wet needle, wet needle. Not wet noodle, but wet needle. So there's lots of approaches. So let's look first at one of the simplest that can yet be complex, and that's just 100% needle felted. When you try and decide what to use as your background or base, the important thing to think about is how detailed that piece is going to be and what kind of dimensionality it's going to have. So here's an example of two 100% needle felted pieces. This one y'all have seen, this little dog, 100% needle felted. It's very detailed and it's very dense. This piece, made for us by Sandy Atkins, is 100% needle felted, but notice how much dimensionality it has, whereas the other one was very flat. These are actually both on the same base, which is 100% wool felt. And I'm going to show you some colors that we have. These are a bunch of plain or neutral colors in our 100% wool felt sheets, which you can get in an 8x12 sheet in lots of colors. But what she and I both did was covered our backgrounds 100%. Mine is covered with MC1 batting, which is our signature fiber. If you haven't used it before, it's what people are buying when they buy the Color Me Happy bundle. It comes in over 85 colors, and it's a real nice batting for needle felting. And if you look at Sandy's picture, she covered hers in the batting as well, and then built up this beautiful little alpaca for us using our core wool and alpaca fiber. So both of these are done on this wool felt. You know, you could choose to leave the background exposed. What I want to tell you about it is that it's a really great option. Here's the back of a piece. It's a really great option for needle felting a picture because it can take the wool very densely without shifting and changing shape. So you can get super, super detailed. And am I in the two?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can get super, super detailed and not lose surface area. And let me explain what I mean. This is one of the first realistic pet portraits that I did, and some of you have seen this one. And this is our the background is our MC1 batting, and it has been needle punched. And it's thin, it's not super thick, but it was needle punched to this thickness. And I drew out my design as best I could with my transfer pen in advance. And as always, I started on the eyes. And what I found was, there's a lot of lines to get in there and get those eyes. I put a lot of lines in there to try and capture these different areas of the eyes that I was going to focus on. And what happened is, as I was needle felting, that background started compressing and compressing and compressing. And the more it compressed, the more those lines shifted because it wasn't as dense as it could possibly be. This wool felt, all those little felt sheets that I showed you, is really dense. If you want it even more dense or more compact, you could throw it in the washing machine and it's going to shrink. I forget what the percentage was. It was about a 20% shrinkage, I think, without felting to itself, and it shrinks really uniformly. But I haven't had any issues with it puckering or holding up at all, and it can take a lot of fiber. I want to show you another picture that's 100% needle felted with detail. Now, this is not a nice linen fabric. This is an inexpensive cotton that I just got probably at Michael's or something like that. This was actually my first realistic pet portrait. And tell me, can you see the dimensionality here? Can you see that dips down? Does it show in there at all that eye, the fabric dips down?
A little bit.
What I want to show is that, like, for a fabric like this, there's not much place for the fiber to go. And I had an interesting experience. I just sort of felt like it always stayed a little bit fuzzy. So if you want to really compact the wool, it's nice to have something that can take it. And these wool felt sheets are an awesome, quick resource to use. Do we have any questions so far?
Yep, we have got a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first is coming from Pam Golding.
Hi, Pam.
She asks, what do you have on the back of that, Marie? It looks white on the back, and that's in reference to...
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the back of this picture, this is the wool felt sheets I just showed you. So is this one. This is the apricot color. So that's this dog, and that's the apricot color. So let me show that to you. On the back of this dog is this apricot, and I covered the background with our MC1 batting. So for those of you who don't know, we have a free video for this process, step by step on how to do it. You can choose your own dog, make your own picture, but you can see exactly how we do it. So that's the same. This picture is just the white. This white or the off-white, whichever one. So I just used the wool felt sheet. And then this purple here is our true violet in MC1, needle felted in place. Any questions on that?
On those, no, we have some questions about the felt sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie Norling asks, can we get them in various sizes?
Debbie, the felt sheets, the pre-cut sheets are 8 by 12. We do have yardage, but we've really narrowed the colors based on demand. We surveyed our community when we brought this in and asked what colors do they want in yardage. And pretty much it was like black, white, gray, and a light blue. We've offered those this entire time, and you can get, I think it's like a square yard, and Anne's going to post a link to the felt yardage, a square yard or a full yard. The full yard is 72 inches wide, or you can get it 36 by 36. And do we sell it smaller? Half yard or just a yard?
18 by 36.
Oh, so 18 by 36 you can get also. So you could, if you wanted, we could custom order colors for you in the yardage. It just takes a while because it's imported from Europe. So we're not currently stocking a whole bunch of colors, and that's just based on space. Yep, but if you want to do a special order, we'd be happy to do that for you. Now, what I wanted to tell you about these pictures, all of these pictures that I'm showing you here, is that when your picture is well needle felted and flat in the first place, that yes, you can steam press it when you're done. As long as you don't have dimensionality like this beautiful guy, you can steam press him when you're done and smooth everything out as best as possible. But you want it to be really well felted and really flat. So if I show this to you straight up, I think you can see that it's not lumpy and bumpy. It's really a flat picture. As opposed to if I chose like a different background for doing something 100% needle felted, and that might be our PFX pre-felt. PFX pre-felt is lofty. I'm going to hold it up here for you in a minute. It's kind of thick. And this little picture and this little hobbit house were both done. They're 100% needle felted. I chose never to wet felt them. This is a free tutorial we have on our site under the free PDF downloads. And it's just like a simple fun project that might be a way to begin needle felting a picture with no risk kind of thing. Just a fun project that you can't get wrong. And what I want to show you is that, it's not super stiff because it's not wet felted. It's kind of loose. And this is what the back looks like. It's, you don't get super detailed, but you can get some pretty good details. This is it's very similar to the background that I did this dog on. Very similar to. So let me hold up that fabric for you so you can look at it. This is a full size of the PFX batting. And this fiber has been punched to a lofty fabric. And the edges are raw, so you can cut them. You can cut the edges. And we sell this either in like a full sheet, this big full-size sheet, or you can get it in a quarter cut or a half cut or a quarter cut. And I just want to show you the thickness. And I'm going to show you today a couple of pictures besides these needle felted ones that were also made on this PFX so you can see. And here is the thickness of that. It's not felt, it's pre-felt. So these have been felted through a punch machine with about 250 needles, a couple of passes to get the fiber compressed down and at a ready state that you can basically cut out a shape and use this as a felt base. It would be great as a felt base for a picture that you want to needle felt or wet felt, but I wouldn't use it as a base for like wet felting a purse or something over a resist where you have to fold the edges, because these blunt edges are going to give you trouble. Do we have questions on that?
Yep, we have got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Let me pull that up here. Okay, and Anne Franklin asks, would that felt sheet wool be durable enough to sew and make into a bag and hold a certain weight of item?
Oh, this, if you want to sew a purse, if you want to sew a purse and decorate it, I would go with a thicker felt. And we do sell thicker felt yardage. And here I think we have, so this is the 1 millimeter, and then we have a 3 millimeter felt. And that's 100% wool. That's on the is that on the website, Ann? Or is it a special order? The 3 millimeter is a special order. Is a special order because it does get a lot more expensive the denser you get. But I think that the 1 millimeter is too thin to be a purse, personally. And you can't wet felt to it. You could only needle felt to it.
Alrighty, and Patty Palazzi-Burry asks, have you tried a 2D on the new merino bats?
The merino bats are not really for needle felting. She's talking about the new short fiber bats. So do you mean, have I tried needle felting or wet felting? I have wet felted with the 2D bats. I have wet felted a 2D picture with 3-dimensional elements, but I wouldn't use it for needle felting a picture, which is what we're talking about right now. Right now we're talking about 100% needle felt. So just to not confuse everybody, I don't want to jump around. Does that make sense? Yeah, so let me know if that's not what you meant. But if you want a wet felt with the short fiber bats, absolutely. So if we're just talking about 100% needle felting, there's the thing that I think to think about the most is how are you going to frame it? And we're going to talk about framing in the second half. How much detail do you want your picture to be? And how much dimensionality? If you wanted to have a lot of detail, I would go with either like a linen fabric that doesn't pucker or the 100% felt sheets. If you can get away with a little bit less detail, like either one of these, then the pre-felt or PFX pre-felt can be a good option. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, this picture right here, this little butterfly was done on, this is a 100% wool felt. There's the back. So that's 100% wool. This right here, this picture was done on our MC1 batting, which was also punched to be flat. So this, some of y'all recognize as our bamboo. And it's not super detailed, right? I mean, it doesn't look like hyper realism. So but when you get into these tiny details, when you're trying to needle felt the eyes and the nose and the muzzle in such a small manner, when it's kind of thick like this, it does shift, meaning it starts to cave in a little bit. So when it's not 100% wet felted, it may seem dense, but it still has a lot of give. And that's been my experience, and that's what I wanted to share with you all to think about. How detailed do you want that picture to be? The more detailed you want the picture to be when you're needle felting, the firmer you want the background in the first place.
And Patty Burry asks, what is pinched as opposed to needle felted?
What is what?
What is pinched as opposed to needle felted?
I don't understand. No, I don't understand what you mean pinched. Did I say pinched?
Oh, punched as opposed to needle felted.
That is, if I say punched, that is needle felting. So these were, I call it punched, but they would just run through a big needle felting machine to punch them down to that level of compression. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And Sharon Waddell wants to confirm, so density does not equal thickness, does not equate with thickness.
No, you can have something be very dense and very thin. You can absolutely have something be very dense and very thin. As is an example of just about anything wet felted. So this is MC1, very dense. And it's just 2 layers. It's about a 1 ounce sample. You can see that it wet felts very smooth. You can wet felt it without it having a whole bunch of pucker to it. And you could needle felt a solid design on that. And so why don't, after this, we'll jump to something that was wet felted first and then needle felted on top of. We can jump to that. We can go any order we want. Wet felted first and then needle felted on top of. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And we have a couple felting friends wanting to know what would be the best needle to use when doing detail work.
Well, and I would say a 42 triangle is my choice most of the time. Most of the time for doing the super fine details, it's going to be a 42 triangle. And so play with that. Some people don't, some people always use like a 38 star through the whole thing. I think Danny Ives uses a 38 star all the time, and she does incredible detailed work. So I'm looking forward to learning from her and seeing what she likes to use. This is, y'all, some of y'all have seen this before. This is fun for me. We'll use it as a segue to go from 100% needle felted to needle felting on a wet felted background. Are we good for that? Okay. And we'll do 100% wet felting in a minute. So some of y'all seen this before. This is an early Kimberly Pulley. So Kimberly Pulley, when she first started felting, one of the first things she made was a pair of mittens on an old sweater. And I think she made them for her daughter. I don't know, a family member. And I saw them and I said, I need something made by you in my possession. I just need it. So this is what she made me. And this is our MC1 Blue Frost, or which blue is this, Anne? Winter blue?
I think
We don't know.
Blue Frost.
Blue Frost. This is our MC1 Blue Frost in the background, and I just said go for it. Just make me anything that you feel inspired to make. And look at all the fun that she needle felted into this piece. I need to frame it. I don't know why. I have it in the drawer because I pull it out all the time and show people. But this is a wet felted background with needle felted design. And there's a lot of detail to the design, but they're big, bold details to the design. So this is like one example. Let me show you something else that's been wet felted on MC1 and then needle felted. So I know I have, oh yeah, wet felted MC1 and then needle felted. So Anne, help me with the glare on this guy. Can you see him?
Yes.
Do I need to do something?
Can we try tilting back a little bit?
This way?
That made it
Or-
worse.
yeah,
Tilting forward.
Yeah. Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know it's far away and I'll bring it in, I'll bring it up a little bit. Anna, I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit so see if y'all can get it good. Can we get minimal glare?
Here.
Help me. Oh, the tablet's in there? Okay, can y'all see that? So this piece, I'm not sure if I uploaded photos. Does it show? Okay, I'm not sure if I uploaded photos of that to the group. If not, I will. I think I did upload these photos to the group. But this whole background was wet felted MC1 batting over, I think I used the PFX. I cut the rectangle of PFX. I laid out the blue, I laid out the white in the clouds, I laid out the gray, I laid out all. Let me guys hang this back up for a second. So that you think about just going for it a little bit and trying to create a background with some kind of base and then add your details on top. But when you wet felt to needle felt, the thing to think about, and some of you have been talking about this in the group already, when you wet felt to needle felt, you have to think of what's going to happen in the wet felting process. When you use a different colored background, it might migrate up through the fibers that you put on top. And so we're going to look at some 100% wet felted examples to show that, and it's called a halo, when those fibers migrate up through the bottom. Should I pause for any questions?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna breathe.
Alrighty. Let's see. Let's start with a question from Kate Williams. She asked, what is the level of felting that you have to do to the MC1 to use as a background for needle felting? Does it have any stretch left, or is it really fold hard before you needle felt on top?
I think you could go either way. You could just felt it till you feel like you can't shrink it anymore. But it should be felted. It shouldn't be loose that you could pick fibers off of if you really want to needle felt in a nice design. Now, someone like Kimberly Pulley goes back and forth. She'll wet felt, needle felt, wet felt, needle felt. For me, generally, I'm going to wet felt and then needle felt on the details most of the time. So I would say, wool is almost always going to have some stretch. Like here's one she did. It still has a little bit of stretch, but it should be well felted before you needle felt into it. You'll be more satisfied with its ability to take the design and have integrity. Otherwise, you may as well just needle felt it, in the first place. Another question?
Kathy Jensen asks, how do you feel about machine needle felting versus hand needle felting?
How do I feel about it? I love needle felting. I don't have any judgments about how somebody else does it, but I have tested a number of needle felting machines, and for me, they have not allowed the level of detail that I want. I have two at home that collect dust in my closet, and I've been trying to think of, a charity to donate them to, and then partially feeling guilty about when they break their first needles, they're gonna not know what to do. So I've had challenges with the needle felting machines because they seem to break needles a lot. There seems to be a real low visibility and a real low level of control for detail. I tested them and I put them away and decided not to carry them for all those reasons. I personally love needle felting. Some people just love hauling out their embellisher. And in fact, one of the images that we showed in our Birds of a Feather started on an embellisher, and then the person ended up finishing needle felting. So I always say, do what you love and do what's fun for you. So I don't have a judgment about that, but I haven't had great experience with needle felting machines. Mm-hmm.
And Karen Rutherford has a couple of questions about wet felting and needle felting on a piece.
Okay.
First question is, if you want a very smooth finish, is it better to needle felt on a dense wet felted background?
Yeah, if you want a really smooth finish, then needle felt your background really dense in the first place. Or what did I say? Needle felt, wet felt. If you're going to be needle felting, then wet felt that background to be really dense in the first place. So this little guy is an example, and he's completely different. It's not MC1 at all. It's 100% merino. So this is 100% merino top in the background, except for the little grassy grass stuff. So this is merino wool, and then the bird was wet felted in place, and I shared pictures of this in the group. And then there was needle felting done on top, and the needle felting was done with merino top mostly and some MC1, but it was wet felted very densely. So it's like a real nice fabric in place. So definitely get a nice dense base if you want detail in your needle felting. Okay, something else?
Mm-hmm. When you needle felt on a wet felt, can you make a relatively flat piece?
Oh yeah, that's what I think these examples show. You can definitely make a flat piece. You just got to be willing to do the work to needle felt it down. That's it, And so when you have a really dense piece, you don't have to put down a whole bunch of wool. I've been working with someone, consulting with someone who's doing something very similar, and encouraging her that she can put less wool and have a flatter piece. And so especially if you have a good solid background to receive it, for sure. And so, here's a beautiful example by Kimberly Pulley. And this background was wet felted. She kind of leaves a blank receiving area for the face and then goes back and needle felts detail. But then she wet felts again just to get everything to combine together. And that's because the thing to think about when you wet felt, whether you're going to 100% wet felt or wet felt to needle felt, is there's a difference that happens in the physics. When you needle felt, you're pretty much just applying fiber down, 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 down. When you wet felt, the fibers migrate both ways. And so if you see something like this little bird, he was in many cases, much brighter. If you look at some of the steps that I share in the group, he was much brighter before being wet felted, and that's because any fibers underneath are going to migrate up through the top layers. And I think we can look at a couple of examples of that. And it's something to think about. Choosing that base layer when you're wet felting has that added parameter, and that is the migration of the fibers from top to bottom.
Wonderful.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we think about that migration, I will bring in, let's see, I want to bring in a bigger example, and some of y'all have seen this, and some of y'all were actually talking about shrinkage in the group today, and someone said batting shrinks less than roving or more than roving, and there were a couple of things said like that. And what I want to remind you all of is that roving can be of any breed, and batting can be of any breed. That also that thickness can contribute to how much something shrinks. So I don't think it's as it's as easy to say or as cut and dry as to say batting shrinks more than roving or vice versa. I think there's too many parameters to say that. And so a batting could be out of a really coarse fiber, or it could be out of a really fine fiber, like the short fiber merino bats as a batting. And this backing right here, I'll just show you the back of the wall hanging first, is a very coarse fiber. So one of those shrunk much more than the other. So I want to encourage you to think about the fiber, the micron, when you think about shrinkage. This wall hanging is my my peacock lady. Let's hold her up for a second. Now you'll notice that the background is a light gray. And when you're doing a wall hanging or a picture or something, a purse, anything, and you want to have sort of a less expensive background, a lighter background is going to support a brighter sort of top design. If my top design were more dark, grays and browns and greens, then it would have been smarter to go with a brown or a gray background, because you get what's called a halo. And from this distance, you probably can't see it. But I'm going to have Anne guide me, and I'm going to show you first, up here on the top, all the fuzzies that are kind of not visible when you're just looking at it. So Anne, can you see that here?
Mm-hmm.
See all that? That's on the front too, but it doesn't really show from a distance. So let me see if I can, whoa. I don't knock anything over. Can you see all that dark? Can you see all the dark here?
Yes. Yeah.
All of that is the background fiber coming through. But because this is a large wall piece, it doesn't really show when it's just up on the wall. And so it's not as important as it may seem to have the same colors all the way through. What is important is to have that structural integrity. So some people were asking about thickness and talking about how dense something should be. If you wanted to have a lot of integrity and strength on its own, then you'll do better by going thicker in the first place, unless you want to mount it. So we'll look at hanging and mounting in just a minute. I probably need to jump to that.
All right. And Laura Burke asks, are the edges sewn down to the background?
No, these are turned down. This is the mounting, and I'll talk to you about that. But these were felted underneath. These are felted underneath. So during the wet out process, once everything was all wet and as flat as possible, once we got the whole wall hanging as wet and soapy and flat as possible, then the edges were turned under before we started felting. And some of y'all have seen me talk about this piece a number of times, and what I want to tell you about it is this is the only class I've taken outside of having classes here at Living Felt. It was taught by Carolina Arovili, and she taught us how to shrink this wall hanging without rolling. So it was all hand rubbing. And that was to teach us how to shrink a wall hanging or a picture without distorting the image. So most of this felting was done sort of compressing versus shrinking side to side or up and down. So it didn't shrink a lot. And so when you all start talking about this shrinks more than that, or thinking about losing dimensionality when you're felting, a lot of it has to do with the way we're felting. So when we're doing a lot of rolling, you can expect more shrinkage in general than if you were to felt something like this, which was done by hand. And she had some specific techniques she taught us to control that shrinkage. But I want you to think that there's many more parameters to shrinkage than just batting versus roving. And it's not always cut and dry. I think the most important thing is for you to test and understand your processes, your fiber, how thick that is. I'll post a picture maybe in the group so you can see that this fiber, when it was laying out, was probably about that high off the deck. I'm going to say it was about that lofty before we started wetting it out. So this weighs, what did I say, 2.3 pounds? I think it's 2.3 pounds, just to give you an idea. And it's about 42 by 20, I think. Okay, so this was to show you about the halo and the fibers coming up through the back. This one too, this is another one. This is 100% wet felted. Move this guy. 100% wet felted piece. And from a distance, it probably looks like, black and gray, and these is a big band of locks. But when you get up really close, and I'll have Ann guide me again, you can see the light fibers. Can you see those right here? See how close can I get?
Oh, right there.
Can you see the light fibers coming through? And that is the background, which was core wool. So I just laid down a core wool background and then wet felt it on top. And what you can do is just make your top layers thicker so that you sort of limit the amount of halo that comes through to the front. Is this helpful, y'all? Do you think so far you feel like you're getting, yeah? I can't really read while I...
And going back to the lady meeting, Kate Williams asks, would a palm washboard make that control easier?
I think the palm washboard is still a rocking back and forth motion. So maybe, I mean, I haven't really used those to try and control the shrinkage in the same way so much. But when you think of pressing, like I did feel like I was able to get a little bit less shrinkage on this. All I used was my hands, the palm washboard, and my rolling pin. And I felt like it was really nicely compressed in a way I was satisfied without doing rolling, back and forth rolling. So I'd say high level, yes, but to say you'll get no dimensional shrinkage, I can't say.
Alrighty, and Laura Burke asks, can you please show the mounting of the black picture?
I'm going to show all the mounting at once. So just just a couple of more things I want to show you real fast. And that is just a couple of things that are 100% wet felted. And just to point out that they are, this piece is 100% wet felted. I never ever touched it with a felting needle. So you can have fun with that yourself, maybe challenge yourself to make a piece. So this is 100% wet felted. This piece right here is 100% wet felted. It's just one of my early ones. And I brought it to kind of talk about the mounting a little bit or some considerations. It's super lightweight and very soft felted. And this piece is 100% wet felted. And this is Kona cotton from India. This is just a fiber inlay underneath. And this is actually a nanofelt piece. So this is nanofelted. And what you can't see, you probably can't tell, is that the silk fabric is on top. So it's nanofelted, but I laid down the wool first and then the silk fabric on top of the wool.
And can we get a close-up?
Is that good?
Good.
So when you call us and ask, what background should I use for a wall hanging or a picture, our minds go to, are you needle felting? Are you wet felting? Are you wet felting and then needle felting, and then wet felting? You see, like, are you nanofelting it? How do you want to mount it? How do you want to hang it? We have a ton of questions, and there's not sort of one straight answer that we can give you. And you have lots of options for how you want to explore that. So play with it. Make little ones before you make a big one. We're always going to encourage you to make a test. So let's look at hanging and mounting in a few different ways.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Karen Rutherford asks about that photo again. Does it have dimension? Can you tip it?
Which one?
The one that we just showed the mounting.
What? Which one? Which one is she asking about?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay, just let me know when you figure it out. Just let me know. Okay, great. All right, so let's look at some mounting and hanging. The oldest method, the method I learned first, was to hang something with a dowel, because that's the way quilters hang it. No, I'm going to back up. The way I learned to mount first, before a dowel, was by a quilter who came and lectured. So I'm going to show you that. This is one of my first wall hangings, and this is 100% wet felted. It's New Zealand Corriedale and an old cross batting. And what I learned was quilters at the time would make a stretcher bar frame, cover it in fabric, and then stitch their piece to the fabric. So you can't see it. You can't see it because I covered it with paper, but it's kind of beat because it's pretty old. And this thick felt was thick enough that I was able to stitch it around the back. So how you do that is you stitch in concentric circles so that the threads holding the piece aren't drawing on the fabric in any one place. So you could stitch around the outside and then inside and then inside, and you just want to stitch through so it doesn't show. The only thing I want to add that I would change if I were to try this process again is underneath this fabric, I would have a batting of some sort, because over time, if I can show this, over time this is heavy on the frame and you start to see the line of the wood. So if you want to go with this approach, it's a quilting approach, then I would say put a batting underneath your fabric so that there's a lift.
I think Karen Rutherford would like to see the white and blue piece.
Oh,
the
okay.
dimension of that one.
Okay, so this has dimensionality because it's nanofelt. So I'll just hold it sideways. Can you see? So underneath here are like thick cords of wool, and then this is just fabric. And I wanted it to be kind of floofy. Can you see? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So let's look at mounting and hanging. Now this big lady and this one are done the same way. So I said the second way I learned to hang was with a dowel, but then I modified that later. So on the back of a piece, you can hand stitch this cotton webbing. And tell me, can you see? And this is cotton webbing.
Can you get in
Closer?
Can
you see? Okay, so what you do is you take Velcro, the loop side, you take the loop side of Velcro, machine stitch it to the cotton webbing. So that's sewn on us, the white is machine stitched to the cotton webbing first. And then you hand stitch the cotton webbing to the back of your piece. And then this Velcro is mounted, what we've been using are just these 3M strips, stick to it like crazy. We put these on the wall and then stick this up to the wall. If your piece is, if your piece kind of wants to curl up, then you can do the same thing on the base. Now the way I first learned to do it was to run a dowel underneath the webbing, but the dowel almost always is going to create like a lip, a ridge, and you'll see it. So instead, just use the Velcro strips. Is that good? Oh, we're getting hearts. That's the first time I've seen any any feedback flying across. Good, that works. Okay, so now with that method, that's how I hang this lady, and she's heavy, and this one is light. The thing to think about when you just hang wool on the wall like this is pretty much how it looks. This lives in my office. The edges kind of curl off the wall. So we have a really big piece we're displaying right now, and it's just curling off the wall, and it doesn't look as stately as it could. So if you have a piece and you want to sort of capture it in all its glory, one of the things and have it just sort of always be square, one of the things you can do is mount it to a pre-stretched canvas, and that can be painted or not painted in the same Velcro fashion. So this piece is mounted to a pre-stretched canvas. If you want to go with like a gallery, like you want to exhibit or you want to enter for an exhibit, go for the thicker canvases, 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick, as opposed to the thin ones like that my birdie is on. That was for my home, so I did it the way I wanted. But go for the thicker canvas. And then you have the question of, oh, do I have the canvas show or not show? You know, do I want this inside the canvas or sticking over? Buy a few and have them so that you can decide. And this is done the same way. And I didn't have to put anything on the felt. I bought matching Velcro. This is the hook side. Hook, right? The hook side's this. I think that's the hook side. The hook, I don't know what the hook or the loop, I don't know. This is the part you would normally put on the wall. These are the 3M strips, and they're just like the pokey uppy part. And I just put the felt right on it, and it sticks to the felt piece. And then if you were going to exhibit, you've got to have your hanger wire. So you don't want to use the sawtooth hangers at all. Instead, do what the professional framer will do. And you can mount your hooks inside here if you can, and run your wire. You're going to mount those at about 1/3 of the way down so that the wire just comes up to about here, but mount them on the inside. This piece has been professionally matted, and so I'll just try and show the back. Can you see the hooks there? Those are real nice hooks, and you can get all the stuff at the hardware store. And get the wire that's been plastic coated. You'll be glad you did. I think you'll be glad you did. So when they do this at the fabric store, have them mount and if possible give you a little dimension between your glass and your piece in case it sweats wherever you are. And then what you'll notice is it does protrude up the back a little bit. And I've just been taking mine to Hobby Lobby, and honestly, they're awesome. Like really professional, they do a great job. You can go to Michael's or some other framer if you can't do it yourself. So we've looked at 2 ways, I want to say. This guy is sort of a funky homemade way. And I had made this piece on the PFX and decided to leave the edges organic. And then I had no idea how I was going to hang it, and I wanted to put a little tag on it because it was made for piece felt. I always make a partner piece felt, one for my partner and one for me. And then I just sewed fabric to the back and then just cut holes for a little dowel. So it's kind of country bumpkin, but so am I. So it's an option to be a little country bumpkin.
And going back to how the lady is mounted, Dorca asks, are you mounting the other side of the Velcro to the wall? How would that work like for retail?
For retail? You mean like you want to sell the piece? I think it's just going to come down to whether somebody wants wool right on the wall. So if you want to sell your piece, instead of mounting it straight to the wall, I would mount it to a canvas. And then when the person gets it home, they can hang the canvas, or they can stick it right on the wall if they want. And you can have canvases custom made, or you can buy your own individual stretcher bars from like dickblick.com, so you can make your own, or you can have someone make you one if you can't find the right size. Or what you can do is plan your size before you felt. If you plan your size before you felt, then you have the canvas you know you want it to go on. Like this piece was made for an exhibit that was a 12 by 12 exhibit. It had to be 12 by 12 on a 1.5 inch frame. So when I made it with that intention that I was going to mount it on the frame. So this piece has been wrapped over a pre-stretched canvas. The canvas was not painted because I was going to cover it 100%. And then I mounted these little loop. Can you see those? How do I show those?
Get in just a little bit.
Yep, so that's the example. So I stretched it over and folded the corners and just stapled it down. And if you wanted to, you could cover this with paper or fabric or felt. Honestly, I didn't care. It's just a small exhibit with our guild, and I knew they didn't care. And it's really for me and my husband. And then my birdie is done the same way. Birdie, that one is nano-felted, but this is 100% felt. And again, this is just me, Marie, doing my robin study. It's not for sale. And I also stretched it over a thin canvas. And it was made with that in mind. Like I intended to mount it to this particular canvas. And I haven't even put in the hooks or anything. But it's stapled. And now if you're selling your work, make a tag or something with your name in it so that you mount it to the back. You have it like on your piece. I think we've covered this. Now this one by Sandy Atkins. The other thing I was going to say was shadow box, and I meant to bring another piece that was shadow box. So something to think about is, do I want my piece behind glass or no? Some people like it and some people don't. And if you're selling your work, they can change their mind when they want to. And this piece by Sandy Atkins is open. She has glued the wool, it's on the wool felt sheet, MC1 over the top, and then she glued it to the back. This whole back piece is glued on there. And there's no glass, which is super fun. And he watches over the whole shop. So the options are endless, and hopefully we've given you some ideas to think about. Linda Broderson said, are you stapling it? And I think you mean these. And yeah, I just use my staple gun. And so I know that a gallery may not approve, but I'm not trying to make 100-year-old or Navajo weavings that'll be around for 100 years. You know, this is for my temporary enjoyment. Okay.
One final question.
Nan says one more.
This is coming from Vicki Ryan. She asks, paper or not on the back, which is the best for archive quality?
Oh, well then if you want to archive it and you really want to protect it, then consider having it professionally mounted and framed on an acid-free, using an acid-free mat, and of course you can choose museum quality glass or no, and they'll also use acid-free paper. So if you're going for archive quality, definitely choose archive quality paper, and I would get it behind glass. It's because that way you know it's not going to get any critters or anything. But like this piece is 15 years old, I want to say, and I mean, I don't see a single munch hole on it. The only place, I know, the only place I found munch holes is when I've stored something in my garage for a while, and the silverfish got it. I know. So yeah, archive quality, consider that. Great. Okay, gals, thank you so much for all your patience. I know I've been a talking head for an hour. I hope it was helpful. If you have some other questions, post them along here. The fairies are back. We're going to give away some prizes. So this is what we do at the end of each Woolly Wednesday. We like to give away prizes. If you've asked questions in advance or you contributed to the conversation along the way, Anne has put your name in a hat. You want that right here? Yeah. Anne has put your name in a hat, and we're going to draw some prizes to give away. So yay, before we do that, I'm going to heart everybody if I can. Yay, yay, yay. Heart. Okay, so who's going to draw the first read?
Pam?
And you like fairy bells when we ring or something.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah,
Fairy bells,
okay,
that's
let's
next.
see.
I told Ronnie we need a theme song.
Oh, let's see here. Jeanette Fedorka.
Yay! Jeanette, congratulations.
Jeanette, you win a quarter cut of our PFX pre-felt batting.
Yay! All right, Jeanette, you can check out the PFX and let us know what you think.